The ongoing conflict in Ukraine has sparked some concerns over the ongoing longevity of the Bay Area housing market. Is it likely that the Bay Area housing market will experience negative backlash from this ongoing conflict in Ukraine? Coming up on this week's Silicon Valley Snapshot. One of the questions I'm getting more frequently than not at this point is whether the ongoing Russian-Ukraine conflict is going to have an impact, a negative impact on the Bay Area housing market. And we certainly have some data and stats to share with you to support the pros and the cons and everything. Before we get into like data and stats regarding all of that, if you're a home buyer in today's marketplace and you're looking for a comprehensive data set to help you with your home buying decision making, you can go ahead and text the word data plus the zip code or the area, the neighborhood that you're looking in, and we'll get that data sent straight to your inbox. And if you're a home seller in today's marketplace and you're thinking, well, is now the right time to sell my home? And if I do sell, what should I price it at? And all of those questions that are permeating and swirling around in your head, you can go ahead and text the word data plus your property address, and we'll get all that data sent straight to your inbox. I'd like to preface this entire video with, truthfully, I don't care what happens with the Bay Area housing market. I care way more about the lives that are being lost right now overseas. And honestly, everything that's happening over there right now is awful. And I just wanted to start off by saying that because, all of this is just minutia when it comes to dealing with human lives. But at the end of the day, it's my job to provide commentary and to provide an opinion and to provide you with some data and stats to support whether or not this is going to have an impact on the Bay Area housing market. That's my job. And so I'm going to do it. I'm going to do my job. But at the end of the day, I just want everyone to understand that this is a minutia when it comes to the overall impact that this is having on human lives. And that's way more important than the impact that it's going to have on the Bay Area housing market. With that being said, though, let's get into it. And really, when we think about what the potential impact of X is going to be on the housing market, we look at everything the way that I like to look at everything. And this was taught to me by one of my friends, Carl Warden. Amazing economic mind, very smart guy. Carl always taught me to look at things from a four-legged stool. The housing market is a four-legged stool, and each leg represents a different facet or factor in the overall housing market equation. Foreign money, jobs, the stock market, and lending. A four-legged stool can normally get away with three legs being propped up. So if we remove one of those legs, or if one of those legs is damaged or broken, we can usually get by. But if two of those legs are broken, we're in for it. So what I want to do right now is really analyze what this impact or what this conflict's impact is going to be on each of the four legs. Let's start with foreign money. And frankly, this is the one that many people could potentially get wrong, because many might suspect or think that foreign money is going to be negatively impacted, or the foreign money coming into the U.S. is going to have a negative impact on the housing market. And more importantly, what we got to think about is, what about Russian money? Because Russian money is going to be the thing that gets stymied over the next 6 to 12 months, plus sanctions and everything else are going to limit the amount of money that can come in from Russia. An article written by DS News just a few weeks ago states, even if sanctions against Russian buyers come to fruition, little impact will be seen in future market numbers. The article goes on to say that an article written by the National Association of Realtors states that Russian foreign buyers account for less than 1% of foreign buyer purchases. Think about that. So less than 1% of all foreign buyer purchases are made up by Russians. The article goes on to say overall foreign buyers account for about 2% of existing home sales. So think about this. We're talking about 1% of 2%. So what is that? Russian home buyers account for 0.02% of home purchases around the nation. So when we think about foreign money coming in, Russian money coming in, we're going to see a very little impact, honestly, on the overall amount of buyers. So if we eliminate 0.02% of the buyers, we're still in really good shape when we look at the overall amount of home buyers and the amount of demand in the Bay Area housing market currently. And even if we eliminate full 1 to 2% of home buyers, we would still be in a very good spot here in the Bay Area housing market. So I think it's very safe to say that right now, the foreign money aspect, that stool, that leg of the stool, is fairly safe. Now, if things get worse, could that change? Absolutely. We could see less foreign buyers coming. We could see a full shutdown of the globe, much like we did with COVID. And in that case, well, yeah, we could totally see for, a brief period of time, foreign money drying up completely, and that might change the script. That might flip the script a little bit. But that being said, while it's something to pay attention to, and while it's something that we should be aware of, right now it's looking like if things stay the same, that foreign money coming into the US, the amount of foreign buyers, it won't be severely impacted by this current conflict. All right, let's look at the next leg of the stool. Well, the next leg of the stool are jobs, and jobs for the time being are safe. I don't see a scenario right now with the current conflict in which Facebook or Apple or Google or Amazon or any of those companies are going to stop hiring or lay people off in a way in which we're going to see a negative impact on the amount of home buyers in the market right now. So don't see a scenario in which jobs will be negatively impacted due to the current conflict. Now, if things get worse, then we could absolutely see a situation in which maybe we see a stagnation in hiring for a brief period of time. Or, I don't even see a scenario in which we see massive layoffs due to the current conflict. So I think the worst that we could see is perhaps a stagnation or a brief period, a pause on hiring. But that's only going to be for a brief period of time, hopefully. Now let's flip over to the stock market. This is where things get interesting because truthfully, the stock market's been in a downward spiral here for the last 30 to 45 to 60 days. And so if that continues, we could definitely expect that stool leg to be wobbly, if not completely chopped off. And so, yes, that has already been an issue here in the Bay Area housing market. And that has not had a visible impact on the housing market here in the Bay Area, because that's something that we've been living with now for the last 30 to 45 days. And actually, this has been the most intense 30 days in the Bay Area housing market in the last 5 years, meaning we've seen home prices rise more in the last 4 weeks here in the Bay Area than we have in any time within the last 5 years. So the market's hotter than it's ever been despite the issues with the stock market. Now, if the stock market gets worse due to the conflict in Ukraine, we could absolutely see all the uncertainty and the conflict and the chaos going on over there reflecting negatively here in the US stock market and the markets here. So if those issues continue and if the conflict continues, and God forbid, we hope it doesn't, but if it does and it causes more uncertainty in the markets, we could see the stock market fall even more, in which case we could see even more pressure on home buyers to pull out of the market because they don't want to liquidate their stocks at a huge discount to buy their home. Finally, we have lending. And right now, there's nothing to suggest that lending is going to be a cause for concern with home buyers. Now, obviously, rates are going up, and that is not something that we were unaware of going into this year. We knew that rates were going to go up. That being said, for the last couple of weeks, there have been a few rate drops before this huge rate increase that we experienced within the last week. And so, should the conflict in Ukraine continue to the point where things are where things are more volatile here in the US, I would expect the Fed to temporarily re-lower the rates, which would artificially pump life back into the market. And so we've seen the Fed do this before, where volatility, creates a short-term drop in rates, and the Fed plays with the rates all the time to make sure that they're either artificially speeding it up or slowing it down. Obviously, with the housing market, the way it's behaved over the last 4 weeks, it makes sense as to why they raised the rates. They're like, well, this conflict in Ukraine hasn't really caused as much issues in the housing market as we anticipated, so let's raise the rates. Let's slow things down a bit. But if we start to see a situation in which the conflict in Ukraine creates more uncertainty, especially in the stock market, we could see rates fall back down. And so I would consider that leg of the stool to be stable for now. It certainly has, rates going up. It hasn't caused any instability from the sense of buyers pulling out of the market. We're not seeing any of our buyers right now internally here at Selling Silicon Valley pull out of the market because of rates. So for now, I would say that lending as well as jobs and foreign money are all very safe right now, given the current landscape of the conflict. Now, in an awful scenario, could we see one or more of those legs start to falter or fall off? Absolutely. I don't want to go there. I don't even want to think about that, to be honest. Is it a possibility? Absolutely. But I think the more probable thing, and I think we can all agree that the most probable thing, is that the conflict in Ukraine is not going to go there. And if it doesn't go there, then in all likelihood, we're going to have very little effect. It's going to have a very little effect, very low effect on the current landscape of the Bay Area housing market. Now, that's not saying that with 100% certainty, it's not going to have an impact. There obviously is a scenario in which we could see the conflict escalate to the point where we start to see one or more of those legs start to wobble and fall off. You know, for example, perhaps jobs start to dry up, foreign money stops coming in because there's a temporary hold on travel around the globe. Those things could all happen. But the probability is very low. When you look at history and you look at what war tends to do to the housing markets here in the US, well, the truth is that the impacted areas, the areas where the war is actually occurring, the real estate in those areas tend to drop significantly. So the real estate in the areas that are currently impacted will certainly be affected negatively, but everywhere else, we're refuge here. And so if anything, we could see a potential spike in activity after everything is said and done. Now, not during the conflict, but we're talking after the conflict. Now, will a lot of those refugees, will a lot of those people come to the US? Probably not. A lot of them will end up in Europe. But if we look at history, and history tends to repeat itself, typically, post-conflict, post any type of war, the non-impacted areas usually see an uptick in buyer activity regardless. So when we're thinking about the most likely scenario, right now, despite the conflict in Ukraine, we've seen one of the most intense and insane sellers markets that the Bay Area housing market has ever seen. And so should things fail to escalate in Ukraine, which, my God, I think we all hope is the case, that things do not escalate, then in all likelihood, the conflict will have very little impact on the Bay Area housing market. That's all for today. And listen, if you've stayed this long and you've stayed this far in the video, let's bring a little joy into your life. Please hit the subscribe button and the like button. And after you do that, text the word free shirt to the number down below, and we'll get you that free shirt sent straight to your home address or mailing address or wherever you want it sent to. And thanks again for watching. This is Danny Gould, everyone. I'm selling Silicon Valley, and I will catch all of you in the next video.